Now, I want to question something, but I don't want to say such a blanket statement like free will doesn't exist. But I really do want to question free will. And there was this quote that I heard a couple of days ago, and this is really why it's in my mind. And the quote is that when you're at like a stop sign and you have a choice between left or right, and you choose one of left or right, you may think you had a decision there, but the truth is that the roads were built long before you existed. And the reason why this quote like really bothered me about destiny and free will and all of those things is because it's somewhat true, right? And you got to think about like nurture, right? It's kind of like the nature versus nurture thing. We all have our own set of parents, our own set of environments growing up, our own set of teachers growing up, and you have to think all those things shaped who you are today, and none of it was in your control. We also have to think like biology. I think a lot of us, um, very small fraction of us, doesn't affect this, but a lot of us are somewhat powered by our biology, right? Um, Regardless if you're a man or a woman, I'm pretty sure our biology, our need to reproduce, or our need for affection, our need for human connection, all of those things, I think it's all biological, and it's hard to overcome. So you think if these roads, if these paths are preset for us, how much of us really have free will? And when I was when I was 18 years old, I was growing up, and I always thought like everyone is should be living this traditional path of, you go to school, college, you graduate, you get a job, you get a wife and kids, and you retire, and etc. Right? I always thought that was like the normal way of living, but the older I get, I used to think like those are just concepts and ideas that someone came up with a long time ago to have a functional society. And society nowadays doesn't really, need um, that out of you to have a good life, right? Because I came from a foreign country, and that country, having kids was wealth because you could have six kids and send them all to the farm, and they're almost like employees, and that kind of mentality doesn't really apply to today anymore. But going back, I think when you really think about free will and destiny, it's it's very fragile. I think. I think our choices are limited. A lot of times, our choices are made for us. If you want to be a basketball player, but you're not the tallest person, most likely you won't go to the NBA. Maybe you'll play in high school, but in college, but you won't go to the NBA. It just can't happen, right? And if you're really tall and you're gifted in athletics, you might be more likely to be in sports because of peer pressure growing up. A lot of tall people, their parents even pressure them to get into sports and certain sports and whatnot. And that's what I mean. I mean, if you got into it because your parents kind of nudged you into it, and maybe you have a successful career, did you really choose that life, or did that life kind of choose you? Did that road kind of just exist and you just kept walking down that road? It feels like you had a choice, but in my opinion, I don't. I think it was your destiny if you were to do that. And I don't think destiny is wrong or anything like that, but if you really want to think you're a free thinker, someone with free will, I think you really have to notice what's going on here. Notice what's going on with the road you're walking on. Is this a road that was pre-built, or is this a path that you're creating? And that's really what I think about often. I think even 2, 3 months ago, I was walking in a path that someone else created. This is a path that is tried and true, that I can just mimic and I'll be successful. It's kind of what I was thinking. But when I think more, I think I can get creative with life, and I don't have to follow its traditional path, and I can, have fulfillment that way. And I can elaborate more on what I mean. And I've been talking about it in prior videos about my next goals in life. But I think this one thought really just kind of shook me and made me realize how much of my life wasn't really in my hand, and that I needed take back control, so I just don't, be a byproduct of life and be the product of life. But let me know if you guys have something to add to this thought. I thought it was pretty interesting.